And welcome back to Who Would Win, the week of Who Would Win. And this Who Would Win today comes to us from, as I remembered that I actually I'm redoing the video. I had to restart it. As I remember that I left the book right underneath there. Comes to us from, it's S.E. Hector. So I guess that technically is Hector? S.E. Hector U. Who asked the question, who would win a fight, Atrocitus versus Sinestro? Unique because not only are these two individuals that exist within the same comic universe, DC Comics, but they're two individuals that exist within the same general group of characters, Lantern Corps. Different Lantern Corps, obviously, but Lantern Corps, who have not only that, but have met on multiple occasions. Now, to the best of my ability, I couldn't find a scenario where these two had actually fought before. I think it must have been, at least in comic, and I could be wrong on this, by the way, at least in terms of why they maybe never actually fought. Maybe there was at least a mutual respect, or maybe they were smart enough to be like, fighting the other guy isn't going to go so well for either of us. But if they did come to blows, who ultimately would win in a fight between the two of these guys? Now, if we were to take their rings out of the equation, that fight, I think, would actually go pretty easily to Atrocitus. The reason for this is, while Sinestro is a very skilled military combatant, strategist, all that, he is still physically about the same as a normal human, whereas Atrocitus is much, much more powerful physically, naturally speaking, than Sinestro or human is. But taking their lantern rings into the equation, who would win? Now, all the lanterns possess the same general layout of abilities, Green Lanterns being kind of the de facto lantern, having the overall most abilities, I suppose. No, that's not the best way. Having the general abilities of all lanterns, just amplified by their will and imagination. I think that's just it. I think what the lanterns can ultimately do, Green Lanterns do that the others can't, is ultimately just create literally anything their minds can think of. All lanterns to a certain extent can do that, but I think Lanterns of Will are the most creative in that endeavor. Plus, as far as I know, most of the other Lanterns can't time travel, which the Green Lanterns can actually time travel if they need to. Otherwise, it's the same general layout of abilities. Force fields, energy shields, flights, energy blasts, energy constructs, the general abilities. But each of these rings do have their own abilities. And when it comes to these abilities, well, honestly, in this fight, the Yellow Lanterns get a short end of the stick just a bit. This is because that all they're really capable of doing is distinguishing. They can distinguish what their opponent's fear is and use it against them. They can create energy constructs that are specifically tailored after their fear and are empowered by the fear the user instills in others. Obviously, the Red Lanterns are Rage Lanterns. They are powered by their rage. And Atrocitus, being the leader, is probably among the most powerful of them, if not the most powerful. Now, he can obviously do the basics, as we know, or just talked about, but like all Red Lanterns, his biggest weakness, first off, is the fact that he doesn't really have a heart. Like, a Red Lantern ring literally replaces your heart. Now, as far as I know, the heart is still technically there, but it might not be, because they are kind of immune to Black Lanterns, who basically favor attacking, killing their victims by ripping out their hearts. But the Red Lanterns can survive the attack as long as their wrath burns bright due to their bodies running on red energy rather than their own blood. So this tells me that yes, they still technically have their hearts, but their hearts are basically just burned out. Like, they just can't function anymore. Even if you remove a Red Lantern's ring, the heart doesn't just start beating. Normally you die after that. That can be mitigated with like the use of a Blue Lantern or even a Star Sapphire Lantern. But yes, they have their hearts replaced. The biggest common ability all Red Lanterns have, even the ones who are kind of just mindless drones, is their red rage plasma, which is believed to be a combination of their blood and like energy. It's described, they vomit plasma, which is described as a combination of napalm and acid mixed together, and pretty much burns away anything. It is surmised as the eternal rage effect on their blood. These flames burn even in space. Their effects on the living allows them to ignite the flames of rage within the victims, and the effect burns through an energy auras of an opponent, as well as corrupting other power rings, depleting them at an accelerated rate, greatly weakening the structures they create. It's so strong that it can destroy members of the Black Lantern Corps, which are just zombies with lantern rings. faster they can regenerate. It's so potent that it can even burn the new god like relic, despite his odd regenesis within the reality lessons, elevating him to the what the hell is this sentence even saying? Basically, he can burn even like new gods, so it is extremely volatile. Obviously, energy projections, energy conduits, force fields, the whole 9 yards. But beyond that, they also have rage absorption. The red power ring can be used to absorb red energy that has been released into the air of a world, absorbing another's rage if the person being absorbed from is not wearing a red ring themselves. In essence, they can feed off others' rages. They can also infect other lantern rings, other individuals with rage. One second. Rage transformation. Simply consumed constant change. Okay, this doesn't mean anything. Rage empowerment, again, same thing. Rage telepathy, doesn't really matter here. Blood portals, a unique quality of the blood power ring, is capable of opening portals out of red lantern plasmoid blood, enable the wielder in question to traverse interstellar distances in an instant. Hemiopotent replication is said that by Atrocitus, should a red lantern consume the blood of another, wouldn't matter here, they'll take on their abilities. Illusion generation, they can do that. And rage mind control. Through the red light of rage, Atrocitus can warp the psychological state of anyone who comes in contact with him. Marking them as both slave to as well as to their own mindless ire, whatever. Basically, more exceptional powerful, moreover, the exceptionally powerful manipulated who succumb to it are more prone to calling red power ring to them. Basically, he can kind of take over people to a certain degree. However, red lantern rings do come with a actually large amount of weaknesses. Like I said, the life support dependency. If you were to remove a red lantern's ring, they're in bad shape. They're also emotional dependence. You fall out of sync with your rage, the ring's effectiveness can drop significantly. Uncontrollable rage. For a while, this was only Atrocitus was allowed to be someone who could maintain his consciousness, really. Others were just kind of like mindless dogs. But in Atrocitus' case, this is not a problem. And the other two weaknesses, which would be sapphire lanterns and blue lanterns, are not issues here. So, with that said, who wins in a fight with between these guys? So, that comes down to who can exploit the weakness of another first. And, unfortunately for Atrocitus, there's actually not much of a weakness for him to exploit in Sinestro. He can't exploit any rage he has. He can't really feed off his rage, and the Sinestro is too strong of an individual, I think, to control him mentally, at least not with a rage lantern. We know about the ultraviolet lanterns later down the line. But, and I just realized it's ironic that the Lantern Corps videos today, too, and I'm doing a Lantern Corps versus. But what Atrocitus does have over Sinestro is just pure raw power. Add on to the fact that his plasma vomit would be able to burn through any construct he has, and Sinestro would be in trouble for a little bit in this fight. However, despite being a lantern and a leader of the Lantern Corps, who actually does have control over himself in such a state, he is still motivated by burning rage. And no matter how composed you might be, rage will only take you so far. You can only think so clearly. Whereas Sinestro, being the Lantern of Fear, is able to think clearly in a fight. He is an experienced military tactician. He is an experienced strategist and fighter, even without his ring. And the fact is that, burning rage or not, Atrocitus probably still has fear, like being locked away again without his ring, being made slave again. Atrocitus probably still has a fear to exploit somewhere in there, which, in theory, the Yellow Lantern ring should be able to exploit. Although these Lantern rings do provide certain levels of protection. That's another thing that the Green Lantern ring, I think, does over the other Lantern rings, if I'm not mistaken, is it actually provides mental protection to a large degree. And that might be another thing due to the idea of willpower. So the question is, who would ultimately win in the fight? These two would come to clash. You could say it's the War of Light, whatever, and they're throwing out, energy attacks, whatnot. Their plasma is just melting through most of these constructs. He's coming in, Atrocitus, manhandling Sinestro, trying to just dominate him, gonna vomit his plasma up on him, try to ignite rage. Unfortunately, if assuming that the ring of rage doesn't provide any mental protection or anything like that, Sinestro should be able to capitalize on whatever fear he has, and then use that fear against him. Add on to the fact that Sinestro, while not being as physically powerful, and not just like raw power compared to Atrocitus, is he is still the smarter and more collect and more strategic individual between the two. So it's very likely he can form a strategy before Atrocitus can ultimately kill him. Furthermore, he knows the weakness of the Red Lantern ring is you got to remove the ring, and it's very possible that Sinestro could do that. Maybe he gets in close. Maybe Atrocitus is about to just vomit on him but before that he starts monologuing, and Sinestro's just like and just yanks the ring, maybe the whole finger off his body, and he just he just starts keeling over. Just, if they're in space, he just dies right there, and Sinestro just keeps the ring in check. Now, maybe a red ring could even burn through, like just the ring itself could burn through a construct, just because of the nature of the Rage Lanterns. But I don't know. I don't know if that's ever been proven to be the case. Still, ultimately, I'd lean towards Sinestro just because of the strategic aspects of him. While he's not as powerful in terms of raw strength as Atrocitus is, be it Lantern Ring or naturally, he is still strong enough with the Lantern Ring to compete for a while, even if he is going to get overpowered, and come up with a firm enough strategy to beat Atrocitus, I believe. This, however, is just my opinion. Atrocitus isn't my favorite of like the main Lantern leaders, but he is got a great design. He looks dangerous and imposing. I do like his design. So ultimately, I would go Sinestro in this fight. But let me know what you think. Would you go Sinestro? Would you go Atrocitus? Or would you go? What would you think? Let me know in the comments below. But until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you folks next time. I got a Lantern Corps video to do.